Deadly Little Valentine, a holiday quick kill story by Joan de la Haye. To everyone who's ever been ghosted, gaslit, dumped via text, or seriously thought about killing their cheating spouse, this one's for you. May Marin's dark little escapade remind you that revenge is sweeter than chocolate and lasts longer than roses. Cupid's arrow is locked and loaded. I'm sweating like a whore in church, and the mosquitoes have a taste for my blood. Fucking little wankers. Smacking them while they're mid-sip and seeing them go splat is surprisingly satisfying. Not nearly as satisfying as pulling the trigger on a target who earned his bloody end, but enjoyable enough to make me smile. It hasn't stopped raining since I landed at Sir Siwashagur Ramgoolam International Airport in Mauritius 2 days ago. My agent Jane insisted that I get settled into the rented villa before my new target arrives. Not that I needed her to point that out. I always show up a few days early for a job, so I can set up and take care of a few logistical things. Doing a little breaking and entering, stuff like that. I'm a little insulted that she felt the need to add that to the brief, but it's okay, I'll get over it. Why the hell the guy decided to bring his latest mistress to the island during the rainiest and hottest time of the year is beyond me. Nothing says Valentine's Day romance like getting dengue fever. But hey, I'm not the judge, just the executioner. Don't get me wrong. It's a gorgeous island any time of year, and I must say the digs for this particular assignment are beyond stylish. Traveling to exotic locations and staying in 5-star resorts is one of the many reasons I got into the death business in the first place. Granted, I've also stayed in some shitholes over the years, which makes these jobs hobnobbing with the 1% feel like a holiday. Killing one of them is an added perk. My laptop beeps with a notification of an incoming message from Jane, with further instructions from the client. I can't help but laugh and shake my head as I read them. Even though Jane never gives me details on who the client is for the jobs I do for her, I can usually guess, and judging from these instructions, it's got to be the wife, especially considering the demand that he dies on Valentine's Day. Let's just say there's nothing like a woman scorned. Or in this case, an incredibly pissed off wife who's had enough of her aging, cheating billionaire husband, who still thinks he's a playboy. Plus, there's always the money she'll inherit when he dies. He hasn't been keeping her warm, but his money will. Not to mention the toy boys she'll have fun with once he's gone. I don't generally do domestic disputes. The men I take out tend to be the sort who make me look positively angelic in comparison. Ordinarily, I would have passed on simply putting a bullet in a guy because he dipped his wick in the wrong pot, but this guy didn't earn his fortune being a decent guy. Then again, none of the billionaires I've met have been choir boys. They've all pushed the boundaries of propriety in their pursuit of fortune and gold. I've been hired by most of them at some point to take out a rival or some blackmailer who, quite frankly, asked for it. But I'm getting off topic. Anyway, back to my latest target. This absolute peach of a man doesn't believe in divorce. Philippe Duval is a not-so-good Catholic who prefers homicide to divorce. His contractor of choice, Lucien Voltaire, doesn't have the same qualms I do about killing women or children. He does, however, like making it look like natural causes or a convenient but messy accident that gets blood everywhere. For a guy who constantly cleans his nails, it's incredible how much he enjoys getting blood on his pristine clothes. Jane's client clearly knew her time was up and decided to strike first. Smart woman. Much smarter than her predecessors. Lucien made the last Mrs. Duval go bye-bye right off a high-rise on Billionaires Row in New York, in an apparent suicide. Even trophy wives get depressed. All that shopping and having to fuck Philippe just got too much for her, or so the scuttlebutt claimed. Her swan dive was very convenient but very bloody. I heard they still found bits of her weeks after she bounced on the sidewalk. Lucien's appetite for cruelty is one of the many things I can't stand about him, that, and his smug, pretty face that I want to smash through a brick wall repeatedly. Even when making it look like natural causes, he makes their ends particularly painful. I know I'm no saint, and there have been times when I've enjoyed inflicting a certain amount of pain on a fair few of my targets, but each one of them deserved to die screaming. I may or may not have laughed as they screamed under my blade, but Lucien doesn't care if his victims are innocent or not, but I do. Before you start wondering, yes, I do know Duval's favorite hitman. And yes, we have a complicated history. And yes, I'm embarrassed enough about the fact that I once let Lucien touch me. Just the thought makes me feel dirty all over again, and not in a good way. We worked a job together a couple of years ago.
He's French and has that sexy accent and a jawline for days. It was hot and I was bored.
He didn't have a shirt on, and he has fantastic abs and an ass you can bounce a coin on. If you'd been in my shoes, you would have grabbed and ridden him all night too. Don't judge. A woman has needs. Luckily, he's supposed to be somewhere in Europe, probably seducing secrets from some unsuspecting embassy staffer, who will probably disappear once Lucien has the information he needs. The reason I know this is how he usually operates is because he tried the same shit with me. I like to think I'm one of the few women he's tangled with who managed to get the upper hand in the sheets.
He's the one who ended up tied up and bleeding at the end of our time together. Not quite the way he'd planned it.
The surprise on his face still makes me smile, as I grab my binoculars to check the neighboring villa where Duval is supposed to be arriving at any moment. Fuck. Shit just got complicated. Lucien stands next to the black SUV, checking for any potential threats before he gives the all clear, and Duval gets out of the vehicle, followed by a bottle blonde in a skimpy dress that would have been perfect for a tropical island paradise if it hadn't been pissing with rain. Lucien's appearance on the scene fucks with my plans. There's no way I can get up close and personal with Duval without tipping Lucien off, and I somehow doubt Lucien will be cool with me killing his primary source of income. Well, I guess there's only one way to rectify the situation. Lucien will have to die first.
It's as simple as that, and I can cure the world of two bastards for the price of one.
Who says a killer has to choose? Cupid's arrow takes aim. As I watch Lucien bound up the stairs to the villa's front door behind Duval and his designated Valentine's shag, I'm tempted to call Jane and give her a piece of my mind.
She had to have known he would be here.
Look, I know I'm good and can handle myself under any circumstances, but a simple note to let me know so I can prepare myself isn't asking too much, right? The least she could have done was give me a heads up, so I could plan accordingly.
It's called being a professional, for fuck's sake.
Unless it's a test of some sort, which I wouldn't put past her, it wouldn't be the first time she dumped me in the shit to see if I could get myself out of it without any help. She calls it a performance evaluation. I call it Jane's kill competency test. Thankfully, I've never failed one. Failure usually means death, maiming, or being incapable of working again. Another possibility is that Jane dropped him from her books and is no longer working with him, which would make sense and could be why he's acting like a bodyguard and not a hired killer. His presence also means he's not off taking care of Duval's current wife, which can only be good. Unless he's here to get instruction from Duval in person, in which case I don't have much time. Lucien needs to be dealt with today. I could check in with Jane and get her go-ahead before I eliminate Lucien, but to be honest, sometimes it's just easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Plus, if I ask her first and she says no, then I'm screwed.
But if this is a test and Jane dropped Lucien from her books for whatever reason, it could explain why she put me on this job. She knows I hate Lucien and will enjoy killing him. It also sends a subtle message to the rest of us: don't fuck with Jane.
Then there's the simple fact of the matter: I just really want to kill them both. Does that make me a bad person? Probably, but I'm good with that.
My conscience has never been a problem for me. My lack of one might be an issue for others, but it doesn't keep me up at night.
I sleep pretty well, in fact.
And I know I'll sleep even better after this job.
Sometimes the trash has to be taken out.
Maybe I should consider myself a garbage disposer, even though it doesn't sound as thrilling. Not that being an assassin is a glamorous job, but it is necessary sometimes, especially with men like Duval and Lucien in the world. I'm still faced with the problem of getting close enough to Lucien, without him getting suspicious or tipping Duval off that he's next. I could take the long-distance approach. I've got the tools with me to set up on a roof and take him out with a single bullet. The problem with that is that then Duval will probably fly the coop, I'll lose the contract, and Jane will be pissed at me. Being on her shit list will have a significant impact on my prospects.
Plus, I want to look into Lucien's eyes when he dies. I know I shouldn't make it personal, but killing someone is as personal as it gets. No matter how much people in my profession like to say, it's just business. I know I'm guilty of that. I like telling myself I'm a professional, but if I'm honest, it's bullshit. I cross that professional line more often than I should. What's the point of doing what I do for a living, if not to cross as many lines as possible? If I wanted to be a good girl, and live neatly within the lines of society, I would have been an accountant. Another reason for getting to the island a couple of days before Duval was that I needed to break into his villa before he arrived, tap into his security feed, and can now see everything he and Lucien get up to. Unfortunately, it's only video and not audio, which blows. But an assassin can't have everything handed to them on a silver platter.
Plus, having audio could interfere with his other radio signals, like his security team's handheld radios or earpieces, which could let them know I'm in their system.
That would be a bit of a fuck-up, and an instant fail on Jane's test. If it's a test. It might be a test. I fucking hate tests.
Especially Jane's test.
I need to stop thinking of it as a test and focus on doing the job, and I love my job.
There you go, head sorted and back on track.
Now to focus on killing Lucien. I can't just walk through the front door and start shooting.
Wouldn't it be great if I could do that though? Can you imagine the carnage and the looks on their faces? Fuck. It would be hysterically funny, and I would probably cackle like a crazy woman, but that's not happening.
It sucks, but anyway.
My fingernails click against the table in front of me as I stare at the laptop screen, which shows views of all the varying motion-activated cameras throughout the villa. I watch their comings and goings, waiting for some opening.
And then a miracle happens. It stops raining.
Hallelujah.
And Duval's little bimbo gets excited.
Hands clapping, jumping up and down, boobs jiggling excited. It's about as fake as the boobs, but Duval seems to enjoy her excitement. My villa and Duval's both have access to the same private beach. Both villas have jet skis and two-man catamarans stored in the private boathouses. Before either of us arrived, the boats were cleaned and serviced, so that when the weather cleared, we could use them without worrying about first calling the staff at the main resort hotel to reserve them. It's as simple as grabbing a key for the jet skis, walking down to the beach and onto the jetty. Being rich definitely has its perks. Another problem I have is that once I take care of Lucien, I need to make sure that Duval doesn't freak out and run.
I have to kill Lucien so that it doesn't make it obvious that it's to get him out of the way.
It has to look either like an accident or revenge for something Lucien did. It won't be easy, but if it were easy, every Tom, Dick or Harriet would be an assassin.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Pulling a trigger is easy, it's getting away with it that's not.
And that's what I usually excel at.
However, doing a two for the price of one job is far harder to get away with.
There's always double the risk and double the trouble, but also double the rewards.
However, on this job, the reward isn't double the money. The reward is simply being able to do the job. I'd probably do Lucien for free. Don't get me wrong, I love being paid for my skills, but there are times when doing the job is reward enough, which is probably why Jane gave me this assignment and not one of the other hitters.
None of the guys have the same history as I do with Lucien.
I can't help but smile as I realize that my history with him is precisely how I'll get him to drop his guard. I doubt his fragile ego will allow him to let me walk along a beautiful sandy beach without getting some payback for how things ended between us.
I just have to dangle myself as bait.
Cupid's kill shot. The water feels glorious against my skin, especially after the heat and humidity of the last few days. Duval sits on a lounger under the shade of a thatched tiki umbrella, his phone glued to his ear, while the bimbo tans topless, distracting the rest of Duval's security team. Only Lucien stays hyper-vigilant and looks cool in his chinos and cotton shirt.
He still looks good enough to eat.
Judging by how the bimbo keeps stealing glances at him, she would rather ride Lucien's wick than Duval's. Can't really blame her. I wouldn't want Duval's hands on me under any circumstances. Seawater drips down my skin as I emerge from the ocean, slow and deliberate. I make sure Lucien sees me as I stroll to my lounger and grab my sarong.
I flash him a smile and wink before putting my sunglasses on.
The blazing hot tropical sun has dried away all signs of the torrential rain, and the fine beach sand clings to my feet as I walk back towards my villa. I can feel Lucien's eyes as I try not to run. Hot beach sand and bare feet are never a good idea, especially when you're trying to be seductive. Lucien points at me and shares a look with Duval to let him know he's off to investigate me. Duval grins and nods. The man has no idea who I am, or what I can do with my thumbs if I need to. He'll find out soon enough though.
But first I need to re-educate Lucien.
Lucien doesn't call my name or rush. He knows exactly where I'm leading him. Each step toward the villa thrums with anticipation. The gate swings open behind me, an unspoken invitation. Closing and locking it would have been pointless and sent the wrong message anyway. I drop the sarong at the door for him to find. My bikini top is draped over the banister rail, at the base of the stairs.
I thought about leaving a glass of wine for him, but Lucien is too much of a pro.
He wouldn't drink it, and drugging him would be cheating. I want him sober and clear-headed when he dies. Relax.
I'm not meeting him naked. I've got a plan.
My clothes were waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs, where I left my bikini top. I throw them on while running up the stairs before he walks through the gate. I wait for him in the bedroom, sitting on my bed with my legs crossed. Weapons are stashed all over the room, knives, pistols and spare clips. Lucien is probably armed with at least 2 handguns and a few knives. He might be dressed casually, but I could still see the Glock peeking out under his shirt at his back on the beach. He probably also has an ankle holster, and some of the male hitters I know keep a small caliber tucked next to their favorite guns. Apparently, most men are uncomfortable patting another man down around the crotch, so it's a good place to stash an emergency weapon.
You lured me here under false pretenses, Lucien drawls, leaning casually against the doorframe.
His French accent wraps around each word, smooth as silk, but his eyes are all steel.
I was hoping to find you naked when I walked up those stairs. No, you weren't, I say, nodding at the Glock he's pointing at me. Okay, you got me.
Lucien grins and shrugs.
But a man can hope.
I lean back casually.
I want him to think he has the upper hand. So, he says as he steps into the room. What are you doing here, Marin?
Did Jane send you here to send a message? I resist the urge to shout bingo.
But I fucking knew it.
When I'm done with this job, Jane and I are going to have a little tete-a-tete about not keeping vital information from me and her fucking little tests.
Did she even tell you why?
He asks, taking another step towards me when I don't answer. The Glock is pointed right at my heart.
Does it matter? I ask. Not really, he says, staring into my eyes. But you didn't plan this very well. I mean, what were you thinking? I had you dead to rights the moment I walked in here.
I could have shot you the moment I walked in. So what's your play here? He looks around while I smile.
I can see many places where you probably stashed some weapons, but what's the point of having them all over the room but not in your hand? Why didn't you shoot me when I was coming up the stairs, or when I walked through the door?
I lean back a little further and sigh as he takes another step towards me, right onto the Killam rug in the center of the room, and hears the click.
You didn't. He looks down at his foot. A fucking pressure switch.
I grin as Lucien goes pale, his jaw tightening as the realization sinks in.
You crazy bitch, he hisses, his voice low and sharp. Only you would risk turning us both into beachside confetti just to get the upper hand. I might be crazy, but I'm not stupid, I say as I pull a remote out of my pocket and wave it at him. I have to say, I love the look on his face as I hover my thumb over the button.
Valentine's Day is supposed to be about romance and seduction, but for me, it's all about power. When done right, killing is a kind of seduction, a game of control.
But Lucien, he's not worth the finesse. This is a wham bam thank you mom situation, and honestly I'm enjoying it far more than I should, especially the fact that Lucien really thinks he's standing on a bomb.
Like, I'd really risk blowing myself up or ruining a perfectly good villa.
They'd never let me come back.
What kind of idiot do you think you're dealing with? I never burn bridges or resorts that I might need later.
I just needed him to think I would.
I also just want to pause the situation and enjoy it when I blow him away. Well, not literally, but you get my meaning. I sigh as I stand up suddenly, and then laugh as Lucien flinches.
This is why having a reputation for being a crazy bitch is so important in my line of work.
People believe you're capable of anything, even when you're bluffing.
What's Jane paying you to take me out?
He licks his lips and watches every step I take as I slowly walk across the room and open the drawer where I've stashed my silenced pistol.
Are you really going to offer to pay me more, so I don't kill you like every other mark we've been sent to take care of? I ask as I walk around the room to stand behind him. That's beneath even you.
He doesn't say anything, but his shoulders sink as he recognizes the inevitable.
What if I told you I'm doing this for free?
I raise the pistol.
Am I even standing on a bomb? He asks, a note of resignation creeping into his voice.
I smirk.
That's the beauty of it, Lucien. You'll die wondering.
I pull the trigger, and I'm just disappointed I wasn't staring into his eyes at the moment of impact. It is what it is. I completed my objective, even if I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I would have liked. Oh well, one down. One more to go. Cupid's cleanup. It's moments like this that I'm grateful for what my mother taught me, about being prepared for anything and cleaning up after myself. She once managed to get red wine out of a white carpet without leaving a trace.
A talent like that.
Priceless.
She's even amazing at cleaning a crime scene.
Please note, she is not in the murder business.
While she did help me clean up a murder last Christmas, she still has no idea what I actually do for a living. As far as she's concerned, it was a once-off revenge thing to get rid of the guy who killed my sister.
My father, on the other hand, is fully aware of what I do. It's fair to say he has mixed emotions on the subject, but he's an intelligent man and knows there's nothing he can do to stop me from killing someone who needs to die and getting paid for it.
I think he's come to terms with who I am, and that he did his best.
Sometimes he just shakes his head and mutters, "You're your mother's daughter," as if that explains everything.
But enough about my family history. Let's get back to the body disposal and cleanup.
In case you were wondering, there was another reason for my little bomb bluff. I needed Lucien to stop on the rug, perfect for wrapping him up neatly.
I didn't want to have to drag him somewhere else and leave a trail of blood to clean up.
I've learned my lesson on that score. Blood trails are like glitter, once they're there you'll never get rid of them. Plus bleach will ruin the villa's gorgeous wooden floors. I want to be able to come back here, and if I ruin the floors, there will be a black mark next to my name, and they'll probably claim to be fully booked next time Jane or I want to make a reservation. So to avoid any future awkward conversations, I purchased the rug at a market in the village, and there's plastic between the killam and the wooden floors, so there is no blood seepage to worry about. I also used a hollow point bullet at close range, so there's not much left of his face.
I'm not trying to stop him from being identified.
I want him identified, eventually. I also just wanted to obliterate his pretty face. Kind of like my final fuck you. I'm also hoping to send a mixed message to Duval.
I want him confused.
I want him a little worried, but not scared enough to flee the island. He's still got enough security to make him feel safe.
I want him to think this might have been about something Lucien did, and not about him.
I know I'm taking a bit of a risk, but it also makes my job more fun. Killing can be a lot more tedious and mundane than you would think. I need to get my shits and giggles where I can sometimes, and fucking with a mark's head is how I do it. Don't judge, everyone has their quirks.
Is it cruel?
I guess that depends on your perspective.
Is it worth it?
Fuck yeah.
And Duval deserves to be toyed with in the worst possible way.
I'm a walking, talking, breathing agent of karma. If I'm the one fucking with your head, you're probably a sadistic fuck who needs to get a lesson on what it's like to be on the receiving end. Just saying. But anyway, I don't know about you, but I always like playing music while I clean.
It just makes what could be a tedious task a little more fun, and since it's Valentine's Day, I've got a killer anti-love playlist pumping while I snap the rubber gloves over my hands.
Love Stinks by the J. Giles Band, I Hate Myself for Loving You by Joan Jett, and Just for Fun, Tainted Love on repeat, it's a vibe. I start by policing my brass and removing bullet fragments from the wall. I bought some poly filler at the market to fix the plaster, and the right paint to match the walls. Finding the exact shade of Mediterranean white was harder than taking Lucien out. I then wash the blood off and cover up the bullet hole. It'll take a few hours for the poly filler to dry before I can paint, but I've got time before I need to take care of Duval. I'll let it dry while I take the catamaran out for a sail around the bay. I've checked the currents, and if I dump Lucien's body in just the right spot, he'll find his way onto the beach in front of Duval's villa. The fish will hopefully also take a few bites out of him while he's floating. By the time his body lands on the beach, his face will be an even bigger mess. The rain lashes against the villa's windows again, as I finish covering the bullet hole with the poly filler.
I have to say Duval did me a favor by picking this time of year to come to the island.
The shitty weather is a perfect cover for loading Lucien's rug-wrapped corpse onto the catamaran.
It's small enough to sail alone despite the winds buffeting the sails.
There are no other boats or jet skis in the bay when I roll his body out of the rug and over the side into the ocean. The splash as his body hits the water is swallowed by the storm's growl. If anyone did see me sailing around the bay, they'd probably think I'm just some crazy tourist with more money than sense. I roll up the rug and tie the catamaran up once I'm back at the jetty.
I'll send it to Jane as a gift as is.
The blood adds character, and she's the kind of person who'd proudly display a blood-stained rug in her office, a subtle warning to visitors. Once I've completed the job and have reached my next destination, I know a guy who'll get it through border controls without dogs sniffing the blood, or any curious security guards opening the package. So no worries on that score.
If you know the right people, you can get anything done. And I know all sorts of people in the right and wrong places.
The poly filler hasn't quite dried, so I also put a couple of fans on to speed up the drying process. The last thing I need is wet poly filler cracking under scrutiny. I pour myself a glass of red while I wait, and enjoy a hot bath in the jacuzzi tub. I need to relax before the next leg of my plan, which involves doing things I wouldn't usually enjoy. Masochism is not my thing. I prefer to be the one inflicting pain on others, but it's something I have to do to get past Duval's guards. After my bath, I finish painting the wall, put the bedding in on a cold wash to get the blood out, and then make sure I haven't missed anything. There's nothing worse than being tripped up by something small, like a few drops of blood or brain matter splatter, which I missed during cleanup. Being a bit of a clean freak comes in very handy. I pour myself another glass of wine before getting to work on my appearance. This is going to hurt, but I'm a professional, and I do what I have to do to get the job done, even if it involves minor self-mutilation. Don't worry. I'm not going to damage myself too badly, just run into a couple of walls. It's surprisingly difficult to punch yourself with enough force, and since I'm not working with anyone else, I can't just ask someone to hit me in the face. I could have let Lucien smack me around a little before I killed him, but he would have enjoyed it too much, and then I might not have been able to maintain the upper hand, and I would possibly have been the one who ended up floating in the bay. You might wonder why I don't just use makeup instead of physically beating myself up. Well, the embarrassing truth of the matter is that I suck at doing makeup, especially special effects makeup. The last time I tried, I ended up looking like a clown who'd lost a fight with a chainsaw. Just because I can fake a bomb under a rug, doesn't mean I have that specific skill set. I should probably learn how to do it better at some point, but I've been a little preoccupied with learning how to kill people and dispose of their remains over the last decade.
I might sign up for a course or something between jobs.
Jane's always telling me I should diversify my skill set. So she'll be pleased if I ask her for a list of her approved courses and instructors.
Maybe then she'll stop being such a nag about it. But there are also some things you can't fake, no matter how good you are with makeup.
Anyway, it's time for a deep breath.
I can do this, I tell myself and take another glug of wine. Okay.
Another deep breath.
On the count of 3. 1.
Deep breath and exhale.
2.
Deep breath and exhale.
3.
The wall looms before me, and for a second I wonder if this is really the best plan.
But I still run smack into the bedroom wall. I didn't just paint and has no art.
I do it again and again until my face feels like I've been in a proper fight. My lip is split and swollen, and I'm definitely going to have a black eye. The bruises might take a while to bloom, but the red and puffy look is convincing enough for now. Now it's time to scream and smash a few glasses I bought at the market when I got the Killam rug.
After all, I have to set the stage convincingly for Duval and his security team. They need to hear me before they see me.
Another part of setting the stage, besides messing my face up a bit, is that I also have to rip the dress I'm wearing, which sucks. I really like it.
It's red and has pockets.
Do you know how hard it is to find a pretty dress with pockets?
It's like a unicorn in the wild, rare, magical and irreplaceable.
Thankfully, the neckline and the fabric make it easier to rip and expose the sexy but deadly corset I'm wearing under it.
It still sucks though. But it's okay.
The money I'm earning on this job will more than compensate me for having to rip the dress. Right. Showtime. Cupid's trap. The moon hangs low, its reflection rippling across the sea as rain needles my skin and the wet sand clings to my feet. I clutch the shredded remains of my dress to my chest, while I stumble along the beach towards Duval's villa, just as one of Duval's security guys radios in that he's found what's left of Lucien floating in the shallows and has dragged him onto the beach. See? I'm a pro who timed my entrance perfectly. I let out a scream, sharp and jagged, slicing through the drizzle, and collapse beside Lucien's body. My fingers curl into the wet sand. If I ever decide to leave the death business, I could probably get a job acting in a soap opera. An agent in New York owes me a favor for dealing with a particularly nasty little blackmailer. I hate blackmailers. They're all leeches who think they've found leverage and are owed something they haven't earned. I left her alive, severely damaged, and she'll spend the rest of her life in a psych ward, but I didn't kill her.
It took a lot of restraint on my part, but I have my code, and I wasn't going to break it for her, no matter how tempted I was.
Anyway, back to Duval and my stellar performance as a hysterical woman. If I'm honest, if I were one of Duval's security team members, I'd be tempted to either shake me or slap me.
I may be laying it on a bit thick, but I need them distracted.
I need them not to think about the fact that timelines don't quite match up.
I need them to buy that I'm a helpless victim.
I need them to remember that they heard screams and the sounds of violence, but I don't want them to remember exactly what time it was, or to start doing precise calculations.
Not that they seem bright enough to check the currents, or figure out how long Lucian's been in the water.
I'm hoping they'll think he was just dumped close by around the time of the screams. Okay, maybe I didn't time it all perfectly. Shit happens. I'm winging it as best I can. And considering the circumstances, I'm still on schedule to take Duval out precisely as the client insisted. Right on cue, Duval struts onto the beach.
Well, he tries to strut.
His shoes aren't exactly great for walking on wet beach sand, and they slip or get sucked into it like a quagmire. He tries to maintain his in-control persona, but one look at Lucian's ruined face and he starts hurling up his guts. For a guy who's ordered a few deaths, he has a remarkably weak stomach. He clearly never had to get his hands dirty, or see what was left of his wives after Lucian was finished with them. I'm going to enjoy killing him. Instead of smiling at the thoughts of what I'm going to do to him, I whimper and shy away from the hands that reach out to me. The bodyguard is surprisingly gentle, as he helps me to my feet and steers me away from Lucian's corpse. He also tries not to stare at my cleavage, which I've strategically exposed.
I make a note of his face and tell myself not to kill him later.
If I had time and wasn't about to dismember his boss, I might have bothered to get his name and find a way to meet him under better circumstances. You don't often meet a decent guy on jobs like these.
It's a pity, really. He's got a nice face.
I could see myself having a good time with him. Oh well. Such is life.
You were the one he followed this afternoon.
Duval's voice is still hoarse from throwing up. I nod as I wipe a tear from my cheek and try to cover my breasts again. Bring her, Duval orders as he turns and walks away from Lucian's body.
What do you want us to do with him?
The decent guy asks. He has a slight English, possibly an East End accent.
What the fuck do I care?
Duval glares at him.
Just get rid of the body.
I don't need the locals looking into my business. The decent guy sighs and nods, while another of Duval's security goons grabs me roughly and force marches me toward the villa, managing to grope me in the process.
I make a note of the handsy goon's face.
Unlike the decent one, I'll have no problem killing him later. What kind of man fondles a woman while she's hysterical, and who has just been attacked?
I mean, he doesn't know I'm faking it. For all he knows, I'm a severely traumatized woman.
So just for that, he deserves to be maimed at the very least. The walk from the beach to Duval's villa is quick. They escort me past all the security measures I could have bypassed on my own, but it's so much easier to have them wave me through. Getting out will be a little more complicated, but not that hard. Besides, they'll all be very distracted when I want to leave. Duval leads the way into a comfortable and well-lit sitting room, and drags a chair into the center of the room. He gestures to the handsy goon to put me in the chair, which he does and isn't gentle about it. He could do with some sensitivity training.
But since I'm beginning to really dislike him, the chances of him living through the night are looking less and less likely.
While I continue pretending to be hysterical, Duval walks over to the coffee table and picks up a remote. He presses a button and the gas fireplace roars to life. He slowly strolls over, picks up a poker and places the sharp end in the flames. I pretend to be confused, but I know exactly what he's planning to do with that poker. He then nods at the goon standing beside me, who promptly backhands me. Sure, my theatrics might have been grating, but that smack was overkill. He also struck me harder than necessary, right where my face hit the wall, and bruises are starting to bloom. The guy is definitely going to die tonight. I release a shuddering breath, and replace the anger in my eyes with fear. The fact that I'm not tied up is a massive mistake on their part, but it means they don't think I'm a threat. Dumb fucks.
Who hired you?
Duval asks, staring at flames instead of at me.
I don't understand, I whisper through my bloody and swollen lips. Who hired you to lure Lucian to his death?
Duval says with another nod to the goon, who hits me again on the same spot.
I don't know what you're talking about, I cry and curl away from the goon. I saw you on the beach today, Duval says, his hands clasped behind his back, facing the flames instead of me. He would only have followed you because he knew or recognized you from somewhere.
So, I ask again, who hired you?
Nobody hired me, I say between sobs. I met him in Paris a few months ago.
We had fun together while my boyfriend was with his wife in Switzerland. I was supposed to meet my boyfriend here, but he stood me up because his wife demanded he spend Valentine's Day with her at their chalet in Zermatt. I was angry and upset, so when I saw Lucien, I saw a chance to forget about being stood up and get a little revenge.
Who's your boyfriend?
Duval asks as he turns to look at me. Louis Marchand, I whisper, trying to make myself as small as possible.
I still want him to think I'm petrified. I know Louis, Duval says as he walks over to me and grabs my chin, forcing me to look at him. So you're his new whore? He lets go of my face. I'm not a whore, I whine.
I also know Louis and his wife. They also happen to owe me a favor for getting rid of their daughter's abusive ex-boyfriend under the table, and at a discount. So I'm not too worried about Duval calling Louis. Louis might be slightly confused, but he's an intelligent man who'll catch on quickly. But I doubt Duval will call Louis and expose any weakness to a rival. However, I'm not entirely sure what Duval will do next. Thanks to Jane not giving me the heads up on Lucien, none of this is how I'd initially planned Duval's death.
But it's the hand I've been dealt, and I'll bluff my way through to a winning hand if I have to. It seems loyalty isn't one of your strengths if you were fucking around with Lucien, Duval says. I'd be faithful to a man who deserved my loyalty, I say softly. Sure you would.
Duval shrugs and walks back to the fireplace. His hands tremble ever so slightly as he grips the poker, betraying the fear he's trying so hard to mask. As he walks over to me, he nods at the goon who moves behind me, places his big hands on my shoulders and pushes down so I can't move. Duval waves the poker close to my nose and slowly moves it toward my exposed thigh. He thankfully doesn't touch the burning tip to my flesh yet. But I know if I can't convince him that I'm not a threat, he's going to do more damage to my body than I did running into the wall a few times. I can see it in his eyes. He wants to hurt me, but it's not rage driving him, it's fear, pure and unadulterated. I move my thigh away from the hot metal and fake the fear on my face.
Who killed Lucien?
Duval hisses in my face.
I don't know, I whisper, staring at the poker hovering over my thigh. I didn't recognize them. Have it your way.
Duval taps the burning metal against my skin and I scream.
I don't have to fake the pain in my voice for that. It fucking hurts. I swear, I scream. I don't know who they were, and neither did Lucien. They said something about expecting to see Louis, but then Lucien went for one of their guns, but there were just too many of them. So they were looking for Louis.
I nod as tears stream down my cheeks. Duval turns away, and I smother the smile that threatens to creep across my face. Did you call Louis and tell him these men were looking for him?
I shake my head. Why not? I haven't, I stammer. I haven't had a chance to. Not very bright, are you? Duval says as he puts the poker back on its stand.
I'm relieved he's put it away. Didn't it occur to you that Louis knew they were going to show up, and that's why he stood you up?
I shake my head. He wouldn't do that to me. As I said, not so bright, Duval says with a grin as he turns back to look at me. I guess he knew you weren't being faithful.
He nods at the goon, who thankfully lets go of my shoulders.
You're wrong, I say as I look up at the goon still looming over me with as much fear as I can fake. Louis wouldn't let anyone hurt me. What's your name?
Duval asks as he takes hold of my face once more, so I look at him instead of his bodyguard, but at least this time he does it more gently.
Mandy, I say.
If I give him my real name, he'll possibly recognize it, and then the asshole standing next to me will put a bullet in my brain before I have a chance to stab him in his throat with the stiletto dagger I have hidden in my very lacy corset.
I told you it was sexy and deadly. Mandy, Duval lets go of my face, repeating my name. You need a new boyfriend. Are you volunteering?
I ask as I let a sly smile creep along my lips.
Only for tonight, Duval grins. A pretty girl like you who's had a rough night shouldn't be alone on Valentine's.
I nod and lick my lips suggestively. I feel dirty just doing it, but Duval, the idiot that he is, seems to like it. Seriously, what woman would offer herself up like that after being beaten and prodded with a hot poker? Only a woman who is faking the whole thing, but that hasn't penetrated Duval's horny mind. He gestures for his bodyguard to leave us. As the door clicks shut behind his bodyguard, I smile. Duval's fate isn't just sealed, it's already written. Cupid's pound of flesh. The door closes gently behind the goon, and Duval gets a glint in his eyes.
There's something very predatory about how he looks at me, as he reaches a hand down to help me up and out of the chair.
His hands immediately snake around what's left of my dress to find the zip. Clearly, Duval doesn't believe in wasting any time, or being gentle on a traumatized woman.
The man has no game or subtlety.
His hands are rough as he pulls at the flimsy fabric of my torn dress. He's relied on his money and station in life to coerce and buy every woman he's ever had in his life. I briefly wonder if it's ever bothered him that those women have probably never loved him, and that if any of them ever had, it would have been his first wife who he had killed.
I wonder if the irony of that is lost on him.
My dress pulls around my feet, and I'm left standing in my lethal corset and matching panties. Duval steps back and licks his lips, while I push my shoulders back and tits up. The corset isn't what I would call comfortable, especially since most of it is reinforced with strategically placed blades. One wrong move on my part, and I'll end up stabbing myself instead of my intended victim. I step closer to Duval. Each move is a careful calculation in our deadly tango. He thinks he's leading, but with every step back, he's unwittingly placing himself exactly where I need him. My one hand reaches for one of the stiletto blades, hidden where a corset bone would normally be. I move fast. The tip of the blade penetrates the fabric of his slacks and cuts his tender flesh.
The shocked expression on his face is almost comical. Don't worry, I say as I move the blade to his throat. That little nick won't kill you, but if you make a sound, I'll slit your throat. Grunt if you understand, I say, and he complies with a low sound. Good boy.
I smile.
Unbuckle your belt and unzip your pants.
Slowly.
He smiles as he does as instructed.
I can see the question flicker in his eyes. He's wondering if this is my idea of kinky foreplay.
I'll let him think whatever he wants, if it gets him to do what I want.
If he's compliant, it's easier to kill him.
I make the mistake of glancing down as his pants fall to the floor. He's not wearing any underpants, and has a hard-on.
When I look up again, he's grinning and even winks at me. His lack of underpants simplifies my job, though I could have lived a full and happy life without seeing his painfully average cock standing at attention like it's ready to defend his honor. A thin line of blood trickles down his hairy thigh, and for a fleeting second I wonder if it's ruining his fancy rug. It's moments like this that I wish clients didn't get to request how targets meet their ends. I regret laughing when I first read the instructions, but oh well, that's the job. I sigh as I stick the tip of the blade into the soft part of his flesh under his jaw, just enough to draw a drop of blood. He looks surprised but still grins. Using the knife, I guide him to the chair I sat in earlier.
Sit, I instruct, and he obeys.
He eagerly looks up at me as I slice between his buttons and his cotton shirt. The buttons fall to the floor. I use the tip of the blade to open his shirt, exposing his graying chest hairs.
I never knew Louis was into this, Duval says with a breathy, excited huskiness to his voice. I have a new respect for the man, but I would never allow anyone to hurt you like he has. Did I tell you to speak?
I ask, pushing the blade into his flesh just above his nipple.
He shakes his head.
Fear and excitement mingle on his face as a drop of blood trickles down his chest, and I slowly move the blade down to his erection and remove a second blade from my corset. I lean forward, my lips brushing his ear as I whisper, "Claudine says goodbye." The blade bites deep, swift and final as I make the cruelest slice. His blood gushes over my hands. I cut his throat with my second knife before he can scream. As per the instructions, I shove his freshly cut cock and balls in his mouth.
Honestly, only a really pissed-off wife could devise a revenge plan this poetic.
Who am I to deny her request? Anyway,
it's now time for me to make my escape. I spot an open bottle of Chateau Lafite.
I neck the bottle and glug some down. Hey! I need the bottle, and it's an excellent wine I refuse to let go to waste. I also don't have time to pour it into a glass and sip it slowly. Unfortunately, I can only drink a bit since I don't have time to enjoy the whole bottle. So with a sigh I throw the half-full bottle against the wall above the fireplace. Rich red wine streaks like blood over the ornate mantel.
It's such a waste.
It'll probably take quite a bit of noise to get the desired reaction, so I pick up a few other objects and throw them against the wall. I then shout, "I'll fucking kill you," loud enough for the bodyguard to hear through the door before I take up my position.
It doesn't take long for the door to burst open, and for the goon to come striding into the rescue.
It only takes an instant for him to see his boss, and to realize it's too late. He's frozen at the door staring at Duval's corpse and doesn't see me standing behind him. He does, however, feel the blade penetrate his body between his ribs straight to his heart. I twirl around him and slice his throat with my other blade just for good measure. I'm covered in the blood of both men as I peer around the doorframe to check the exit, both blades gripped firmly in my hands, ready to kill anyone who makes the mistake of walking down the passage. The rest of the house staff are at the back of the house, and the other members of his security team are busy getting rid of Lucien's body, instead of keeping an eye on the security cameras.
Not that they'd be seeing me, even if they were watching them.
They're conveniently experiencing technical difficulties. Remember, I hacked into their system when I first arrived on the island, and then disrupted their camera feeds before I stumbled onto the beach. I'm out a side door and running for my villa, before anyone's noticed anything. I can't help but be rather chuffed with myself. Although I do feel a little gross with all the blood, and the fact that I'm not exactly wearing all that much clothing. The corset and panties don't cover a whole lot of skin. My villa is in sight when I smell cigarette smoke drifting on the breeze. I stop running and listen. I can hear someone in the shadows.
"Is that your blood?" the decent guy's voice comes out of the dark.
I look in the direction it came from and shake my head.
"I could kill you," he says. "Why don't you?" I still can't see him. It's very frustrating feeling like I'm in a hunter's sights. "Is Duval dead?"
I nod.
"Then he's not my boss anymore, and I'm technically unemployed."
"Lucky for you I don't kill pro bono," he says, his voice smooth, almost amused. I can hear him take a drag on his cigarette, and then exhales. The puff of smoke gives away his position.
"A true professional then," I say as I relax my stance. I hear him chuckle. It's a pleasant sound. "Sometimes," he says as he emerges from the shadows and drops his cigarette in the wet sand.
Duval had it coming.
I'm not too disappointed that I won't have to deal with him, or listen to Lucien go on about being a direct descendant of Voltaire. "He told you that bullshit too?"
I ask as a smile creeps along my swollen lips. I can't help liking this guy.
"Yeah, he was a downright git." "Speaking of Lucien," I say, "what did you do with his body?" "He's shark bait." "Good to know. In case you're worried," he says, stepping closer.
"If anyone asks, I'll tell them Lucien killed Duval."
I'm not worried, but I appreciate it.
The rain starts falling harder and washing away some of the blood on my skin. I take a few steps toward my villa but stop and ask, "What's your name?"
Jimmy, he says with a smile. I'll remember you, Jimmy, I say with a matching smile and start running. I'll remember you too, I hear him shout after me.
Perhaps under different circumstances, another Valentine's, another island, I would have been able to have fun with Jimmy, but tonight I have a boat to catch. Cupid's last swim. My equipment and Jane's gift, carefully packed in lightweight, watertight containers and placed in a dive bag, are waiting at the front door of my villa where I left them, along with my wetsuit, which I quickly squeeze into.
I don't have much time, and have a long swim ahead.
The boat will only wait until midnight, and if I'm not there in time, I'll be left drifting in the middle of the Indian Ocean with an empty oxygen tank, and any passenger liner or tanker that picks me up is going to have a lot of questions, which I'd rather not have to answer. Once my wetsuit is zipped up, I fling the dive bag onto my back and dash for the boathouse. My dive gear is already prepped and waiting for me.
I don't switch any lights on.
My buoyancy control device and tank go on my back, and the bag with all my other stuff goes in front. Diving with all this crap is going to be a pain in the ass, and I'll probably end up using more air than I should, but it's not the first time I've done it. To be honest though, it's not my preferred way of escaping. You might be wondering why I'm escaping this way, instead of just taking a commercial flight out in the morning, or a private jet with a pilot who won't ask a whole lot of questions. I've had the same thoughts, but apparently the ship's captain meeting me at specific coordinates has the details of another job for me, and he'll be taking me where I need to go. The only problem is the captain's details are sparse, just a name, a voice on a secure line, and a reputation whispered about in hushed circles. Jane trusts him, which means I don't.
What can I say? An assassin's job is never done. No rest for the wicked.
No break for the damned. I look like a penguin with booties and fins on my feet, and gear strapped all around my torso as I shuffle to the edge of the jetty, and then step over the edge.
I make a splash when I hit the water. I only hope nobody heard it.
I move my mask from around my neck and spit in it so it doesn't fog up while I'm diving. Gross, I know. Once the mask is over my eyes, I release the air from my BCD and slowly descend under the water. I equalize the pressure in my ears by pinching my nose and blowing out gently.
I hear the ghostly clicking from the reefs around me. There's nothing quite like the sounds of the ocean at night, eerie, calming, and full of mystery.
The lights from the houses around the bay, the moon and the stars above filter down the water.
I have to wait until I'm deep enough and far away from civilization before using my torch.
Glancing at my dive computer strapped to my wrist, I check my heading and the coordinates. If I keep my pace and breathing steady, I should make it to the boat in time for my midnight rendezvous. My legs scream with every kick, the burns spreading like fire through my calves. The dive bag pulls me down, dragging against every stroke as my brain starts doing the usual post-mortem of the job. My mind goes round and round, dissecting everything that happened, and as it does that, I realize how fucking lucky I am to still be alive.
There were so many times the whole thing could have gone tits up.
Lucien could have killed me the moment he saw me. If he'd stepped on any other spot on the carpet, I'd probably be dead.
And Duval.
If he'd used his brain instead of his dick, he'd have realized my stilettos weren't just a dominatrix gimmick. Dumb luck saved my life tonight, but luck is a fickle mistress.
She won't always show up when I need her. The thought sends a chill down my spine.
Over the years, an expression has been drummed into me: proper planning prevents poor performance. Well, this time around, I sure as shit didn't do a decent job on the proper planning part, and if I want to have a longer than average life in this business, I'm going to have to plan better. I'm also going to have to chat with Jane about her fucking tests, or get a new agent, even if it means dealing with whoever she sends after me. Or I need to find another line of work, which would suck. Where else would I get to kill people, and not feel bad about it? The rendezvous coordinates are just ahead. Thank fuck. I know I have some shit to think about where my career is concerned, but first I have to focus on the next target that needs to be executed.
He's already been judged, even if he doesn't know it yet. And then I'll think about taking a short time out to consider my options. Granted, the last time I was supposed to have a time out, I ended up killing someone anyway.
Maybe I just need to work on my planning and strategies. I wonder if there are courses on how to plan assassinations better.
I'll have to ask Jane about them and add them to the courses already on my list for self-improvement.
Gaining more skills could only benefit me and my career. I'm also getting a little tired of killing billionaires and mafia bosses. Maybe if I take those courses, she'll put me on the political jobs.
Now those pay really well. What can I say?
I have career aspirations. I also hate politicians. But I'll worry about all of that after I've finished and survived my next job, and then I'll chat to Jane about my career goals and her fucking tests, assuming she doesn't have me killed first. About the author. Joan de la Haye writes dark and twisted thrillers featuring dangerous women, cold-blooded assassins, and survivors who turn the tables violently. Her stories push boundaries and revel in the kind of justice that doesn't play by the rules. Her characters don't wait for permission, they take control, exact revenge, and refuse to be victims. If you enjoy thrillers with bite, grit, and unapologetically fierce heroines, you've just found your new favorite author. Visit her digital lair at www.joandelahaye.com.